Hi, I'm Kelly. As a life coach, I've noticed that the work I do with people isn't about their relationships or their jobs. It isn't about their kids or even how to find a way to get all the laundry done. All the work we do together centers around finding the answer to one simple question. What does it mean to live a fulfilled life? Join me as I explore this question and more in conversation with others in the Fulfilling Life interviews with me, Kelly Dahl, as your host. Hello, it's Kelly, and I'm here today talking with Andrea Scher about what it means to live a fulfilled life. And Andrea, I am beyond thrilled to have you here talking about this topic with me today. So thank you very much for being a part of this series.
Thank you.
I would love to give you the opportunity first, Andrea, to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and all the amazing work that you do and share with people in the world.
Oh, thank you. Well, my main website is superherolife.com, and I run a number of different e-courses, Mondo, Beyondo, Superhero Photo, Cultivating Courage. They're all about sort of cultivating these creative superpowers in your life, whether they're, about cultivating your creativity or your intuition or your courage. That's kind of what I'm about. I'm trying that on. That's one way to sort of talk about my work. And then I have a blog that I've had for a lot of years called Superhero Journal. And I started blogging over 10 years ago. So sort of a veteran there, and it's still a really sweet and it's a really vibrant part of my creative life still. And I'm so grateful for the community that I've cultivated over the years. So thank you for reaching out.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. One of the reasons that I really wanted to ask you to be a part of this interview series is because I see your work as really cultivating and helping others seek fulfillment in their life. And I've really enjoyed getting to know your work and the truth that you speak and the vulnerability that you share so that others can also do that in their own lives. So I admire that in your work, and I'm grateful for you putting it out there. So thank you. So I want to start by asking you this question that I ask everybody of what does living a fulfilled life mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, and in the spirit of authenticity, which is why you came to me.
Right.
I was really stumped by that initial question. It's like, okay, what is living a fulfilled life? What does that mean? And I was sort of drawing a blank, and I thought, okay, so do I live a fulfilled life? I don't know. I think there are moments when I feel fulfilled, and there are moments that, it's an ebb and flow, and it's an always seeking balance and always reaching for joy, and then there's life. So I think so I just have to out myself there and say, I don't know. Let's live in this question, together. And then I thought back to my coaching training, which they kind of do define this question. And CTI is where I went to coaching school, and which was awesome if anyone's interested. And they say that fulfillment, let's see, how do they say it? It's like the extent to which you're honoring your values is the extent to which you're living a fulfilled life. Mm-hmm. So I'll say it briefly again. So the extent to which you're honoring your values is the extent to which you're feeling fulfilled and satisfied in your life. So I was thinking of it that way, and I think that's, as it's one way to talk about it, and there's a lot of truth in there. Mm-hmm. And I think when you get really clear on what your values are, and this isn't like morals, like I value integrity and honesty and hard work. It's like more specific to you, like I value color, and I value laughter, and I value doing something creative every day. Or people have a lot of values. And so anyway, I just named some of mine, for example. So I think there's some truth to that, like the extent to which I'm doing those things in my life consistently, I do feel more fulfilled or less fulfilled.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and I love the connection to values too, and that's a big piece of how I work with clients. And I wasn't a CTI trained coach, but I've had somebody ask me if I was, because the language that I use is very similar, I guess. Just looking at this question of fulfillment, and then looking at helping people get aligned with their values. But I know too, like when you are honoring those values in your life and you're bringing those things that you value into your life regularly, you feel much better. Yeah. And when you don't have them, you don't feel as great.
Yeah, it's like, I see them as like nourishment streams. It's like, what are the ways that you need to nourish yourself? And sometimes it's like, it's seeing a good friend or having a great conversation with a friend is like one way I nourish myself. There's like I said, creativity, there's food, there's taking walks, there's being in nature. Like there's all these ways that we need to feed ourselves. And if you're sensitive to it, I think once you become more conscious of what you value and how you nourish yourself, when you're starving for it or if you're a little thirsty for it, you feel it sooner. Yeah. Do you notice that?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Once I'm more in touch with what my truest values are too, and not what I feel like they should be from friends or family or TV or blogs that I read or wherever that those stimuli are coming at me. When I really am in touch with what my values are, I'm hungry for it, and I notice when it's missing. Not to say there aren't also times that I forget too, and I'll try to do something that somebody else is doing or get inspired by something that then I realize, wait, that totally doesn't fit my values. And then I feel it and I can start over again, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and I think, this is a sort of contrary thought to how I do my work, because I'm online a lot, and I deliver e-courses and I blog. So I'm in this online world a lot of the time. And yet one of my greatest values is like the material. Like, can I touch it? Can I feel it? Can I see it in my, it doesn't totally exist for me unless it's in the same room. So I really have to balance out, like in the name of fulfillment, I have to really balance out the time that I'm online and feeling like, oh, I'm connecting, I'm doing all this stuff, and like actually I'm not. It isn't nourishing me in the deeper ways. So I'm always having to balance that with, okay, it's time to make some jewelry, I need to like move my hands, or it's time to take a walk outside and be in the trees, or it's time, this is sort of obvious like human needs, but I just have to say it because if you're watching this, you're probably online a lot, like us are, right? And I noticed if I'm on Facebook, for example, and I'm having that like ick feeling of like jealousy, or I'm not doing enough, or their house is so beautiful and why don't I have a house like that, it's often a signal for me to step back and like be in my real life,
Yeah. And I think the online world is hard in that sense too, because there is so much that appears to be really fulfilling, and I have made dear friendships with people that I may never see face to face. And I believe that is a true, deep, meaningful friendship. But I still need that real as well. And I think one thing for me that I've realized as well in that realm of online fulfillment is I'm an extreme introvert, and running an online business and trying to connect with people, I don't think I gave myself the space to realize that is just as exhausting for me as an introvert as if I was in a crowd of people and having to do small talk and stuff. It's just as draining. So remembering that, so values as well as who I am as a person need to come into play to keep myself kind of on that path to fulfillment so that I'm feeling my best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I love that question. It was somewhere in what you just shared of, I guess, this idea of online fulfillment, and I guess I'm always looking at that question like, is it really fulfilling to be online?
Yeah. It's a tough one to answer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think to a certain degree it is. And it's this incredible tool, and it gives us access to so much information and incredible people and all of that. And yet, so one of the new projects I have going is called Story Bowl. And my vision, it was literally a vision that came to me while I was supposed to be writing a piece in my writing class. And the piece that we were writing had to do with a bowl. And I just started thinking about like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to have a group of women who didn't know each other around a table and with bowls of beautiful food, like a stew or something, and then a bowl of story prompts. So we would just pass this bowl around, and extemporaneously you'd pick a prompt and you'd share a story based on the prompt that you got. And I actually have been experimenting with this. I did it twice with a group of friends before I launched it as an event. And then just last week, we did it as, you know, a group of women, like 10 of us, didn't know each other. And it was such a nice way to bridge that online world, because these people were local readers and part of my community online, to be in the same room together. Because you're right, like those connections are real, like these are kindred spirits. And yet being in the same room with them and sharing real stories from our life was deeply nourishing, deeply connecting, touching, power. I mean, we cried and we laughed and, you know, all of it. It was like, it was just 2 hours of being together, and it was life shifting for all of us. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Which online can't necessarily give you. I think that, I mean, I have been a participant in your e-course, Mondo, Beyondo, and I've taken other e-courses too that have definitely changed the course of my life. But I don't know that in 2 hours, being with people with that kind of work, that I haven't had that experience, but I can only imagine that it would be that much more rich and truly life-shifting.
Yeah, exactly. And then back to fulfillment and values. I'm the girl at the party that, well, I get there early because I'm HSP, I'm highly sensitive, and so I always get there at 7 o'clock. If they say, oh, the party starts at 7, and most people are like, okay, we'll get there at 8 or 9. I get there at 7 because I like to be there when the build-up of the party and not when it's like...
Yeah.
But I'm also the person that I'll have a really deep, sort of intense conversation with maybe one person on the side, and I'm not gonna like just do small talk the whole night. And so I think the other reason why I created this event was like, I'm always craving the real and something a little more, some depth. And I get bored. I'm just bored by like surface stuff. So I think one of the things that I really am craving in my, you know, fulfilled life is like real connection, depth, truth telling, real sharing. I find so much, it's just inspiring and transforming, I find.
Yeah, and you infuse it into all of your work, which is really, really great, and just shows how important that is to you. And I can share this. This is why I've started this interview series, because I do the same thing at events or parties. Like, I want to get in there and talk about real stuff. Yeah. And I don't do well with small talk, and I don't do well with crowds, and but I can have a really great conversation with one person intensely, and that's very satisfying for me. I've never had a huge group of friends, but I've had a lot of really intense friendships that are always a part of me, you know, like they're always here living inside, even if I haven't seen them in 15 years.
Right. Yeah.
So that it's a great thing to do. So I'm curious, Andrea, you've talked a lot about all of these things that do fill you up and bring fulfillment into your life and make your life meaningful. What would you say are some of the things that can get in your way of creating this idyllic situation where you're connecting and talking about passions and all those things?
Yeah. That's a good question. Well, what immediately came to mind is what gets in the way of me being present with my kids. So it always, with this intention of, wanting to be present for them and connected and enjoying them. I think what gets in the way is my desire to like run the business of the house and like, well, okay, who's fed and stop doing that and what's getting, wrecked and who's safe and who's not, it's like there's a lot of managing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way I step out of the moment, and I don't know how to play and just be in it with them. So thinking about that and like kind of look at that as if that's like a microcosm of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think there's a relationship there. I think getting not just not being able to immerse myself in whatever it is I'm doing, and getting distracted and getting concerned about like, well, money and what this and what that. I think that's one of the things that gets in the way. I think it gets in the way of the creative process. Mm-hmm. So for example, if I'm trying to create an e-course from holy shit, I'm cash right now, and oh God, my bills, okay, there's like a certain kind of resourcefulness that comes from that like heat on your back, but it's not the place I like to create my work from.
Right.
So I'm trying to step into, okay, there's this need, let's put that over here for a minute, and it's like, okay, what's my vision? What's my message? What kind of impact am I trying to have? So it's like looking again to your values, but also what's your, how can you be of service? Or like there's better questions that take me to more resourceful places than, oh my God, I have to generate some money.
Right. And I love that it comes forth with your kids too, because I have that same experience. I've written a lot that I suck at playing. I'm always distracted and I want to do something else. And I actually remember as a kid that I wasn't all that great at playing either. I was great at like organizing my Barbie's house and picking out her outfit, but I never could like make the story happen.
Yeah.
And it's the same with my kids. It's like the managing the house. It's like, oh, what am I going to write for a blog post or my newsletter this week? And just everything keeps rolling and I can't stop. And that does get in the way of me and my kids. But I love how you connect it to the work too. And I can share an experience. I recently was working really hard to put together some posts to share on other people's sites, and I sat in a coffee shop stuck for like 2 hours because I was like, I'm going to construct these things for this purpose. Right. And it was pressure and it was defined and I couldn't write that way. But yet if I just say, oh, let me see what comes to me, then that creative process flows and something comes and I'm not worried about it. And sometimes those are the ones that get the best response, right? When you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. But you pressurize it and it doesn't happen as well. But I like that play analogy too, and with your kids to just let it flow and let go of those dishes and just get on the floor for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, because there's a way that, right, there's a trust that you really have to have, I think, to just surrender and just be in the flow of what's actually happening, whether that's like you were mentioning with your writing, like, okay, what's actually happening? Where do I actually have energy? What actually wants to come through me right now? And then like, I should really be doing this and I should really be doing that. And they really want me to talk about this. So yeah, I think there is a relationship there. It's sort of hard to articulate, but yeah.
Our kids are such great teachers for that too, because they have no expectations, right? I mean, they're happy if you talk in a goofy voice that makes no sense about something that's not related to their toy, and they're just thrilled that you're there with them.
Exactly.
And there's nothing that's expected.
Well, and that kind of brings me, like, I'm a process person. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really interested in process. I definitely like to create things and have goals and have completion around things, but I'm a process person. So it's like, I'm interested in practices that have me come alive. Like what lights me up, what gives me energy, as opposed to what drains me. And then, I'm thinking about the kids again. And just yesterday, Ben was with a friend. I'm pointing this way because they were playing in this tree right outside. And I mean, they spent hours building like a tree swing. They had all this like random pieces of wood and rope, and they had concocted this like very dangerous, very cool tree swing and all these ropes and like all this stuff happening, like pulleys and things. And, I came home and I said, I really admire your work. This is amazing. And we have to take it down right now because it's not safe.
Right.
And they were so chilled out about it. They didn't resist. It wasn't like, oh my God, we've been working on this for 2 hours. I can't believe you're taking it down. They were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was kind of blown away. And it's like they just thoroughly enjoyed being together in that particular way, creating something together. It was connecting. It was enlivening for them. Mm-hmm. And
just that process of problem solving, it was enough.
Exactly.
And they're not attached to the product of it at all.
Yeah, it was pretty extraordinary. And, and sometimes they are, and I've understood that. But yeah, I was really marveling at that. Yeah.
I watch my son and the next door neighbor play a lot, and there's 90% of their play, it's very imaginative, and it's all plotting and planning and who's what and what kind of creatures are around, and it doesn't look like that much actual play. And they'll play out a scene, and then they'll come back to plot and plan, and that is just as enriching to them and just as satisfying as the actual play. Yeah,
so it's like, okay, so what can we learn from that? I mean, in a world where we also have to create things, what's the lesson for us? I think for me, I have to be working on things that delight me and bring me energy, or it just doesn't work. It feels forced, or it falls flat, or people can feel it somehow, even over the internet. They can feel. If I'm really engaged, if I'm running a class and I'm really engaged in it, it shows. Like there's all this, there's this energy that comes back to me. Yeah, it's something. Yeah,
it's important, I name it seeking fulfillment and knowing what are those things that are going to help you feel that way and bring more of that into your life, and just seeing how it trickles out into everything in your life too is really powerful to me. When there's that truth to it, and when you're really fully engaged, and when the process is enjoyable, and all of that coming together.
Right. Well, and I think too, in a world where sometimes we just have to get stuff done, I think I'm always asking myself, like, okay, how can I make this fun? Because fun is a real doorway for me into fulfillment and feeling alive. So, okay, like we have to get the house cleaned. How can I make that fun? Sometimes that means my husband takes the kids to the park, and I'm like, woo, it's quiet, I can play my radio stories really loud, and that's really fun. So I think I'm always listening for, how can I make this feel like a pleasure in some way?
Yeah. It's such an important question to come back to, right? And how can you make this life when you do have bills to pay and you do have a house to keep clean and kids to keep safe, but how can it be fun and fulfilling and all of that, as much of the time as possible?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Andrea, it has been so much fun to talk with you about this topic, and I know I have learned so much from what you have shared and had little epiphanies from the connections that you have made between living your life with fulfillment and the work you do and interacting with people. It's been such a pleasure to be with you for this time, so thank you so much.
Thank you too. It was a total pleasure. So you just gave me a lot of energy to start my day over here.
Great, wonderful. I wish you a beautiful day. And would you like to tell everybody once again where they can find you or anything they can look forward to in the next few months from you?
Yeah, well, I'm planning to do more Story Bowl events. So if you're in the Bay Area, you're welcome to join me for that. And then superherolife.com, you can find my blog there and all the other courses that are coming up, like Mondo, Beyondo this fall and Superhero Photo this summer.
Great. Well, thank you again, Andrea. And I look forward to connecting with you more online. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.